I would admit it was not a strong suit.
Yeah, well, Andy's out of town.
Oh, I see, so he'd be.
If he's gonna be on,
Okay, all right.
yeah.
At least I can watch the videos.
Exactly, yeah.
Mike, just to remind you, we are doing cleanup day this Saturday.
Yep.
It's like
Yep.
the coldest, rainiest day
Yeah.
we could get, and we
Yeah.
found it.
You found it. You
Yeah.
did. Excellent. I did the same thing, Monday for the first baseball practice of the season, the coldest and the rainiest day of the week. So
Well, we need the rain, so
Yeah.
we'll take it.
if you run into any problems, just call dispatch. We'll come out and give you a hand, but it'll be good.
We're gonna start off at Hopkins and then spread out.
Okay. I sent the email to dispatch so they know, just in case. A lot of times people will call and be like, hey, there's 30 kids walking down my street. They're cleaning up.
Yeah.
All right, so it's now 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order. It's a finance committee meeting. It's April 9th. And on our agenda tonight, we have the minutes, but let's do who's here first. In attendance is myself, Amy Fiden. We have Peter Machusko and Paul Benjamin. We're missing Shardul Parmar. He will not be in attendance tonight. And Andy Kopacki he's out of town, but may be zooming in online. But we'll see. We'll back on the minutes and we'll do a whole bunch of minutes another time. And then tonight, we are going to be going over pretty much the DPW and the library. That's our focus. Did you have anything to add before?
I was going, no, I don't have anything to add on those, except the library is on page 43 of the budget book, and DPW is in 2 sections in the book. In the late 30s here, let's see, it starts on 37, and then when it gets to water and sewer, it's the tail end of the book, and at page 52.
But if you don't mind, Scott, we'll probably have library go first, because we think you might be wild.
Yes, I don't think so.
So I did make copies for the finance committee, even though it's the same as what's in the book. My workbook before I published this has more notes in it, and sometimes it's a little more specifics that no, but they have them all.
Okay.
Yeah, they have them. Anyone else? Okay, why don't we send one to the library? Actually, we can send them to. And I have one of anyone else?
I got it.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
All right. I didn't send it. Yeah.
They have to.
Okay.
No, I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say that.
So Patrick, if you want to start by going over your budget or anything you want to tell us.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, the budget, well, first of all, I would like to thank the finance committee for having a liaison system again, for us to be able to kind of connect with an individual liaison and sort of talk about what goes on in the individual departments. I think it's really helpful for us to be able to do that and beyond just this context where we, really need to focus on numbers and things like that. But I do think it was helpful. And in speaking with Shardul, it was, it's clear the situation the town is in. So we understand that, even though we made a request, we were making a request to expand services, to be able to add hours to our roster. And even though at this point, I know that that's, dead on arrival, I do think it's important to just sort of contextualize why we're asking for those resources. And that's what this very brief PowerPoint presentation tries to summarize, just in a few key, what I think are key statistics that sort of show the very large difference between where we were as a department. And I focused on these 2 years, 2019 and 2024, because in 2019, that was the last normal year of business that we had in the Goodwin Library before we moved into the new library and before the disruption of COVID and construction. So just to show you, and the reason I highlight this 2 years is because what hasn't changed is the level of staffing. Really for us, we're at 4 full-time equivalents now, whereas when we were in the old building, we were at 3.5. So not much has changed. But what has changed with the new building is the level of activity, the number of just sort of different job responsibilities that have been added to the plate that weren't relevant in the old building.
So Patrick, when you
yeah.
say 4 full-time, is that including yourself?
Yes,
Thank you.
including myself, yes. So just to go through this PowerPoint really quickly, one of the things that we look at, every month in terms of how busy we are is the number of patrons that we have coming into the library per hour. And in 2019, that average number was 9.8. In 2024, that's 18. So that's almost a doubling of the numbers of people that are coming in for all, any number of reasons. And that keeps us very busy. The new building, one of the wonderful amenities of that building, like the senior center, is that it has these meeting spaces for different activities. The library has several spaces that can be reserved by members of the public. The old Goodwin Library had none. So just to contextualize that, in 2024, we had 1,069 room reservations for those spaces in the library. Some of those are not, taxing for us. They're just people coming in to study or tutor or whatever. But it is just a level of scheduling and coordination. And some of those meetings are more complex because they involve some level of assistance with technology, getting people, hooked up to a TV screen like this to do a presentation, what have you. So it is quite a new level of activity that we're not used to, and it puts a strain on what we can do. Physical items borrowed in the library. 2019, we loaned out 42,415. In 2024, that number was 62,234. So that's a 47% increase over where we were in the old building. And every item that in those numbers those are items that we handle multiple times. So we're checking them out, we're returning them, we're putting them on carts, sorting them, getting them in the hands of volunteers to get them back on the shelves. And speaking of volunteers, I should mention that we utilize a ton of volunteer assistance in the library. We always have, but again, with the opening of the new library, we had such an upsurge in interest in helping in the library that we rarely turn anybody away, but occasionally we do have a kind of a waiting list because we just, it's also a lot of work to coordinate volunteers, and we don't want to have more volunteers than we have work. But again, by comparison, in 2019, we had about 341 volunteer hours worked that year. In 2024, that was 1,746. So again, we're doing everything we can to leverage the interest and goodwill and community mindedness of the people of this town to make our operation run as smoothly as possible. But I mean, there are a lot of things that you just can't turn over to volunteers, and those things need to be done by paid staff. Some of the circulation work, computer stuff, that has to be done by people that know how the system works and have some background in the facility for it.
On the volunteers, do you find that sometimes you have, is it mainly retired people, or is it a lot of young kids, high school kids?
It's a mixture. It's definitely a mixture. We definitely have some students that come over from Hopkins and other schools that are doing community service hours for whatever reason. We have people of all ages, really. I do think that we do have a number of folks that are probably at retirement or reaching retirement age that have a little bit of time on their hands and want to give back to the community, which is great. We do have currently 2 individuals who are doing their tax write-off work with us and they do that. So that's been wonderful. And we've been able to, one of them actually is Alan Weinberg, who was a former trustee, and he works very closely with me on a project to digitize historical materials to make them available online for researchers or people doing genealogical stuff. So he's been really helpful in that regard, and he's one of the, he's one of the folks that are on that program. And lastly, yeah, and the last point that I had on here was just that full-time equivalence by year, that it's really barely changed since we were in the old building to now. And so, we're really just sort of up against, we can't really control, we don't want to control the number of people coming through the doors. It's fantastic. This is a great problem to have. But the busier you are, it's kind of like Lucy on the, with the conveyor belt, and you're just trying to like keep up and multitask all the time. And it's challenging. The busier we get, the harder it gets to keep everything and not drop stitches. So that's why, we just want to make everyone aware that, this is a department that's dynamic, that's doing everything it can with the resources that, that have been made available to us. And, I guess next year we'll be back to, giving the same pitch, because I assume that the numbers only seem to go up. And that's really where we're at. The budget itself is fairly, I can answer any questions that you have about it. There's really nothing in here that's noteworthy. The budget is very bare bones. And
Do you want to mention about some of the grants that you're applying for as well?
yeah, so we're applying for one grant through Mass Cultural Council. We have applied for it. It's an operating grant that is, as I understand it, if you are awarded the operating grant, you then are essentially automatically getting it for, I think, 4 years. I don't know what the amount is, but I know that the amounts start at $6,000. So it's a substantial amount of money. I would think that if you were to be awarded such a grant, we would get more than that base amount. But we are looking for other ways to bolster, our normal operating budget through other avenues, because we do feel like we really need to, find other resources to make everything work. We don't want to, start pulling back when we're really feeling like the town is enjoying this asset. So we want to do everything that we can to make sure that everything proceeds and even expands in terms of what we can offer. People seem to want it. They want more hours. They want more programming. And really the only way to do that is to find other sources of funding.
Patrick, I apologize. I should probably know the answer to this, but just for the finance committee's edification.
Yeah.
The reductions that were made to the budget, the unfunded requests, were those only for the additional hours and positions you requested, or did we make reductions to some of the expense lines as well? And so could you kind of lay out for the finance committee whether or not you feel like that will make give you a hardship in order, to make it through FY26 with those reductions?
And they are itemized on here. Right out here.
Yeah, I would say,
3,000.
being that most of those non-salary items are sort of bare bones as far as it goes. The one thing that we are always concerned about is that there's a formula involved, and I should always remember to mention this, and I typically do, but there is a formula that the Board of Library Commissioners requires us to follow in order for us to remain a certified library. And being a certified library allows us to, a Hadley resident to go to Amherst or Northampton or any other CW Mars library with your library card and borrow from them. It also allows us to get materials sent in the delivery van for Hadley residents to borrow from our circulation desk. So we want to maintain that certification. And so there are a couple of formulas that are involved, and one of those formulas is for the purchase of library materials, so books, DVDs, whatever, anything that can be loaned out to them. Electronic services, ebooks, things of that nature. So the number that's supposed to be at about 19% each year. And so with the cut that was made here in terms of like what I don't know, was it not cut? Yes, it was cut a little bit by about $2,500.
Yes.
or $3,000, wait, can't read that, yeah. About $3,000. We can make up for that because we have received a capital grant this year for the purchase of new computers, workstations for members of the public. And that amount, 10% of that total acquisition of new materials can be used to purchase technology that's for direct use by the public. And so that capital request, which was funded, can count towards that. So as far as that goes, I'm not concerned about us, not meeting the formula. And if we buy a few, $3,000 less books or DVDs, I don't think anyone's going to suffer too much for that in these difficult times. But as far as the other things, I think that we can get by in terms of what is being, in terms of what is recommended. I don't think there's anything else here that I would feel the need to push back on as far as it affecting how we operate. Or how the public experiences, the library.
There are just two things I would like to suggest that Patrick's numbers understate in terms of, while the number of items that are borrowed by the library is that figure there. Hadley has a relatively high rate of borrowing items from other libraries, and there is a lot more materials handling involved with that, and so that takes time. We are a net borrower, which means we borrow a lot more than what we lend. And the other thing I would like to mention is that I have actually worked in libraries. I have been a library trustee elsewhere. Oh, by the way, I am Lynn Latham. I am the chair of the library trustees. For those of you who don't know me, I'm sorry, I should have said something to begin with. I apologize. I actually volunteer at the library anywhere between 3 and 7 hours a week. And I can tell you that this library has volunteers doing work that in many other libraries, paid staff would be doing. So we have taken advantage of some of the volunteers that we have. Either they came with the skills or they have acquired them. So staffing for the public facing functions is what's especially important, and that isn't something that volunteers can or should be doing, which is why the additional staff is such an important feature. And in the event we were to experience additional reductions, if it ever hit the staffing line, that would be detrimental to our ability to provide services at a comparable level. There would be changes.
I see you've got, like you were saying, with the borrowed items for $62,000 and, from other libraries. With that much, and you're touching these items, whatever they are, from DVDs to books or ebooks or whatever, are a lot of them, is there a certain time or date when it comes to lending these things out? Are they set out for a week? Are they set out for 2 weeks? Are they unlimited to taking out? Because has there been so many of overdue books to say maybe having a late fee?
We actually got rid of our late fee several years ago.
We Hadley removed its late fee in 2016. Cedar Mars did away with, Cedar Mars is the library network that we belong to.
Okay.
And they essentially did away system-wide with late fees back, I think, a year ago, 2 years ago. It's been,
No, it's
it's been more than that. It was recent though, since we've been in.
relatively recent.
And the reason for that, because,
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about educational supplies and books, so every year you're almost putting in $45,000 asking for new books. You don't take used books. So what happens if there is a damaged book, a damaged CD, or a damaged book, they pay for that?
Yes.
But, okay, so when it goes to that, but, so if you've got a book for a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks, there's no overdues there. If someone's looking for that book, there's no penalties for having something thing that's been out for 3 weeks where thinking about having a slight revenue for overdue books to making sure they're in for everybody else within the community?
Most items circulate for 3 weeks. DVDs circulate for a week, magazines circulate for a week. There is an automatic renewal. You need to also think about when there are fines, the administrative cost of managing that. And truthfully, we are much more interested in getting the item back than we are in generating revenue. It was never a substantial amount to begin with. I think one of the things that the library community is especially proud of is that we provide services to all of the people in the Commonwealth at no charge. And when there was construction and the Goodwin was not so accessible, yes, we know that our patrons went elsewhere. Are we anticipating additional patrons when Hamlet finally gets going? Probably, but there will also be more at Pelham and there will be more at Forbes. It's a very collegial, cooperative ecosystem of some sort. And the fact that you have all of the libraries in central and western Massachusetts, because the consortium to which we belong covers the greatest physical geographical area. And to be able to have a van move things, you can get something from the Pittsfield Athenaeum just as easily as I can get the cookbook I've just requested from Amesbury, Mass. It is an unbelievable resource. And a lot of people don't really know how much we can do, and maybe we need to do a bit better job promoting ourselves. But the cost of collecting the money can't be ignored, and especially when staffing at this point is stretched as thin as it is. I mean, for the amount of time that I spend in, I can tell you how much this guy doesn't sit back in his office and is sitting out at the desk, making room reservations, checking things out, helping someone get a new library card. Most directors in larger libraries don't have that kind of responsibility as part of their everyday job. Maybe now and again, but I can tell you he's out there a lot.
Quite frankly, I enjoy it, so.
But see, that's the thing about library people, they are people interacting folks.
Yeah, and to go back to your original question about the fines though, which is, I mean, this is a conversation that happens, it has been happening for a long time. In libraries, in a library context, around the country, not just here, not just in Western Mass, but I think philosophically, I think the thought here within libraries themselves is that when we see the folks that are generally, just anecdotally, this isn't scientific, it's just, the people that come in that tend to be hit with those library fines are the parent that comes in with 3 kids and checks out, 20 picture books and takes them home, reads to their kid, brings back 19 of them, and discovers that one of them was left under the bed. And so at that point, we're not really there to swat wrists with a ruler. We're there to work with people to get what they need from this community resources that they have paid for with their tax money and are taking advantage of. We're just there. It's like the senior center. We want people to come in. We want people to take advantage of it. We want them to borrow the items, as many as they can take home. And yes, get them back to us. Don't let the dog eat them. Don't let your kids tear the pages out. But we work with people to make sure that they know that this isn't something that they go in and get punished for utilizing. Because mistakes happen, it happens to all of us. And so we try to make it as positive as we can. We don't want them to feel like they're going to the DMV to renew their driver's license. You know, we make it as painless as possible. And
So if it's a day late, it automatically goes to a renewal and it could be for as long as it wants if the book is missing.
no, that's not, it, what happens is when you check out a book, so you check out a book, it goes out for 3 weeks. When it gets to the due date, if it hasn't been returned, there's an automatic renewal so that it goes out for another 3. As it stood before that happened, that automatic part happened, you were able to request a renewal for the item. The library system, not us, the library system made a decision to make that renewal automatic. So that essentially now when you check out a book, you can have it for up to 6 weeks. The renewal, I don't even know why they should just say you can have it for 6 weeks. Because it doesn't really matter, it's a distinction without a difference. So that's the due date. When it comes to the item being overdue beyond 6 weeks, it goes overdue and after, I don't know if it's 10 days, but it switches to another status called lost, and you're essentially billed for the item. So if you've lost the item and haven't returned it, we're then sending you a bill for that item. And if you don't return it, if you legitimately lost it, you're on the hook for it. Your borrowing privileges are suspended. You're not coming in and utilizing the services because you're now in arrears.
But within that 10 days, if they bring it back and then there's no surcharge.
Correct. Yeah, I'd actually have to
Right.
I'd have to double check on what the actual mechanical point is before it goes from just being simply overdue to technically lost and we're sending you a bill. If it went to lost and we were sending you a bill on the, first day after 6 weeks, that'd be a lot of work. That'd be a lot of sending stuff out to people to say, you now owe us $25 because you're a day late. So there is that little grace period to get people, you're overdue, get it back, or it's gonna switch to lost. We don't have a problem with, shrinkage or whatever, things like walking out of the building and disappearing. I mean, the fact of the matter is that, this was particularly true in the Goodwin Library, that for every item that came in, that building was there for 100 years. It was in use as a library for 100 years, more than 100 years. Every item that came into that building, something had to go out. And our obligation to remain a certified library meant that we had to spend a certain amount of money. So things ended up being taken out of the collection in that situation far more prematurely than they need to now, because we have much more shelf space for the collection. We don't have to throw something out or, discard it or send it to another library that's willing to take it simply because there's no shelf space for it. So we're in a much better position now. Things get used to more towards the full useful life of the item. And things, once 100 people have read a Daniel Steele book, you don't want it. It's time to go. So that's, the items are being well used.
No, I'm not denying that. I'm
Yeah.
not, saying that it's not.
One other thing is for most people, we have an email address and that is already in the system. So when that first 3-week period comes to an end, you get an email reminder that the item has been automatically renewed and it reminds you of the due date. When you approach the 6-week period, 2 or 3 days before the due date, you get another automatic email reminder. So there is some contact in order to make sure that, if it's under the front seat of the car and nobody's cleaned the cracker crumbs out under there for a while, maybe it's time to go look.
The system works. By and large, the system works. And the fact of the matter is that the people that we serve, I worked, I worked in a lot of different communities. I've done this work since I was 17 years old. And I worked in a lot of different communities, some of which were, faced a lot of challenges, urban communities that were under-resourced. This is the nicest community that I've ever had the pleasure of working in. It's a wonderful place to work. The people in it are wonderful. And so when someone comes in and they have a problem because something is under the couch or whatever, I tend to believe them. We give them the benefit of the doubt and we work with them to make sure that, it all works out in the end. And by and large, or the vast majority of cases, it does. So this is one of those things where, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. it is a good system, and the CWMR system itself, the mechanism by which people are notified. The fact that people don't have to be calling us on the phone and ringing it off the hook because something needs to be renewed, the system already automatically did it. They have plenty of time to finish their book. And yeah, by and large, it comes right back to us, no problem. So.
If I can jump in, I'm Jack Sikowski. I've been a trustee for about a year now. One page that really jumps out at me is the fact that in 2019, there was no meeting room space in the Goodland.
Yeah.
And now, 1,069 meetings were held over at the library. That's tremendous. I went to the library about Polish immigration a week ago. It was wonderfully done. All these different events that people in the community can go to, that room was packed to capacity.
Yeah, and I should also add, I mean, the room is a wonderful asset, just like these rooms in the senior center are. The rooms at the library can be reserved for any sort of meeting, for whatever purpose, whether it could be Girl Scouts, it could be, it could be a knitting group, all kinds of things, tutors, people needing a space to get together to talk about workplace issues, whatever. Our state reps use those rooms for their office hours. And more importantly, I should say that just like the senior center, the library meeting rooms are used by boards and committees. They're used by town departments to do training sessions. Some of the meetings that are held there by public safety folks are multi-community. You can speak to that. I mean, they're big meetings that we show up in the morning and there's 20 fire trucks, and I'm like, what's going on? Why is this happening? But it's an incredible asset to the town on so many different levels to have these spaces available. But that being said, I don't want to put too fine a point on it, but that burden, I'm going to use that word, but that burden falls to library staff to make sure that these rooms and everything are ready for your next meeting. And that just wasn't something that we were having to deal with when we were in the old buildings. Those facilities didn't exist. So it is a change. We love it. It's a great thing. We support it. We want to do everything we can, but the reality is that it's just more work. It's more types of work, and it's more, things to troubleshoot when they don't work, when the TV doesn't work, all those things. When the Wi-Fi doesn't work.
I have no other questions. Thank you. Great presentation. Everybody else good?
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Wish we had more money.
Yeah.
No, I mean, we get that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Have a good night.
Yes, bye-bye.
See you tomorrow, Lynn.
Indeed, sir.
And over.
All right, let's get ready for Scott.
Good evening. I'm not sure where you'd like to start.
I think Linda has some things to pass out here. I see her. Yeah,
Two, yeah,
there's two per each.
keep that.
Keep this. Oh, okay.
There's actually gonna be 4 separate sheets.
Okay.
Sure, she tried
He's gonna
to
start
vitamin
with
water
the
right
highway
today.
ones.
All right.
They help them,
Okay.
oops,
Thank you.
and then now we need to do
Super. Look at that.
sewer. So. Sure. And I know.
Thank you.
Ready?
Well,
Thank you.
you ready?
Eddie.
Yeah, so highway department, obviously the wages are all contract bound, so there's really not much to talk about there. It's the unions have set their contracts into wages, so we're just follow that. So there's, like I said, there's really not much, I don't believe, to talk about with the as far as wages go. Jumping down, I'm not sure if you want to go line by line, but I did like highlight a few that have some importance to me. you can see vehicle maintenance is a big one, got a, substantial reduction, even 5,000 less than it's been. Things are getting more and more expensive to repair. We did take over repairs and maintenance to the 2 senior center vehicles in the building department's vehicle. They never had vehicle maintenance line item, so they got pushed into ours. And just, everything we own is relatively expensive to maintain, tires, etc. So just, it's sometimes difficult to
So that
make
vehicle
some
maintenance,
repairs.
that says that's the senior center van is in there, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, the senior center van, their senior center car and the building inspector's car
Mhm.
are now in this,
And they weren't, there was no budget for them previously?
no. Like street pedestrian way maintenance. Those are the lines, we use to maintain the streets of Hadley, and obviously the maintenance costs are a lot higher than they have been in the past. Our materials and et cetera are just going up and up and up. Every time you turn around, things cost more money to buy to make maintenance. I did even ask for a separate line item for road maintenance to try to stay on top of the roads here in town, which we're just living off chapter 90. The chapter 90 has been dead flat for years. Once in a while, they throw you a little extra money for, the governor finds that, oh, we're gonna distribute this out, but it's not enough to maintain the roads.
I know it's tough, but Scott, you've been doing a really good job, because as soon as I leave the Hadley line and I go into the next town,
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel the difference.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, eventually it's gonna not be able, we're not gonna meet people's expectations that we have in the past. It's gonna be impossible to do. Just the operating expenses of buying asphalt, especially asphalt, it's going through the roof. This year we had, I'll call it a real winter. We had some frost in the ground, etc. There's road damage all over that we need to address. It costs money. And to do that, there's a lot of things that go along with it, prepping the surface for paving, that, police details, etc. It costs money. I mean, obviously our department, it's a negative cash flow every day. Every day at 7 o'clock when they open the garage door and we go to work, it's taking money out of something to operate. It's constant. Everything we do costs money. So I understand that. I'm just, we're gonna work within the money that's given to us. And we're gonna figure out how to do that. But there are services that just aren't gonna happen anymore. We're gonna do the best we have what we have, and trees and stuff, if it's not a big risk, it's gonna stand. And just the residents have to understand that Hadley service that they've been getting for the last umpteen years. They call, we come and help out the best we can. It's gonna have its limitations.
How's the fleet doing? Of the equipment that you have, are we okay?
So the fleet. So the second newest truck caught fire the other day and left on a tow truck.
Oh, my goodness.
So, yeah, luckily the guys caught it and we were able to put it out and whatever, but that's.
The second.
Was it
newest-
an EV truck?
No, it was a diesel powered, but it's under warranty, but just,
What brand was that?
yeah, it's not a brand specific problem, but anyways, but the fleet, the bigger trucks, the sand trucks that we go all constantly with. The 3 internationals that are the newest or the oldest of the new, I guess, the fleet. The newest one of that is the worst. Constant breakdowns, constant problems, constantly getting towed to the dealership. I think it got towed twice this year, doing snow events to the dealership. The second newest one is right behind it, and the oldest one is probably mechanically. It's starting to deteriorate because of the salt and everything that goes along with that. But mechanically, that one probably runs the best because it's the oldest one emission standards. I had this conversation with Mike that the newest of the old ones, if we had the money, I would recommend bringing that thing to whatever dealership and leave it on the front step and to leave with something else. It's that bad. Constantly broke down.
Mechanically, is it because of mechanics, so lack of maintenance?
No,
or-
it's just the emissions, the truck, the international stuff that was unproven when that vehicle was made. It was, everyone's trying to meet the emission standards and, well, how do we do that? And it just constantly has issues.
So the other two vehicles, are those also internationals?
Yes.
Oh, okay, so you
Yeah.
bought something that's gonna potentially have the same problem again.
No, the two new ones are Western Star. They're totally
Okay,
different
all right, that's what I was
powertrain.
gonna
Yeah.
say, I mean, you're.
The international fleet is the ones we have trouble with. I know one snowstorm this year, there was two of them in a salting event to boot, and the shop broke down, so we ended up using our oldest 10-wheeler that we're holding together with, Jason's welding on the thing constantly, try to keep it patched up enough so we have a spare, because that's what I don't know, these winters with this weather patterns that we're out salting more than doing anything. It's tough to do when you're broke down, obviously. So, go out with what we have, but yeah, just. And then, like I said, it's emission stuff. We don't have the equipment to work on our diagnostic, and that's got to go to the dealer. And then when they don't run, it's a $400 toll bill.
And knowing because of all the salt, the sand and everything else, you're doing pretty good with the undercoating of all these vehicles, trying to keep them alive from all the cancer and the rot from.
Yeah, we, after every, weather permitting, after each snow event, we wash, we salt neutralize and keep everything clean. The fluid film
Yeah,
aspect
fluid
of
film,
it, we put it on, but when we're washing with trying to use a little more water pressure
It falls
to do it, it falls off because it's a
Oh, that's
it's a
the
liquid
point. It's
base,
supposed
yeah,
to be on
yeah,
there. You
yeah,
can leave it
yeah.
on there, not, I mean,
Right.
the salts.
yeah,
Cause I had it done on
Yeah.
my truck and I don't even wash the underneath it, cause I know it's there for a reason, cause
Yeah.
it will wash off.
yeah, but we're trying to get the salt, it just gets in every nook and cranny into every crevice, into the brakes and everything, so we're trying to kind of get the salt off, as best we can, but yeah, we're as far as, rot and things like that, I think we're in pretty good shape. It's more the electrical, the emissions aspect of, the equation, and any kind of diesel repair that's emissions related, it's expensive, even on the smaller dump trucks. When there's a diesel problem with that, it's costly to fix. So
Okay.
it's just, yeah, moving down the list, if we didn't currently fund it, it needs to be funded somehow. The dike maintenance, we have to keep it mowed. It's part of a recommendation from the engineers for the dike. And it's specialized equipment. We just had it done. It's expensive. And we need to figure out how to fund it. Police details, another one.
Before we move on from the dike one, just really quickly, we didn't fund it this year because we were really kind of scraping to see what we could cut from the budget. The timing of that reduction was really bad on our part, only because Senator Comerford has been supporting us to try to get some funds to make the much needed dike repairs that we've been putting off for quite a while. Woodard and Cohen has been building a plan for this town well before Scott and I arrived in the positions that we were in. And we're talking about probably $1 million to 2 million in just immediate repairs that need to happen to the dike. And up to 25 to 75 million to fully rehabilitate the dike. To ensure that the river doesn't cut the town in half. Without planned maintenance and being able to show that we are maintaining the dike as best we can, we are never going to get a grant without showing that we're doing something. And so that was one of the things that I asked Scott to do in the very recent past, which is continue the basic maintenance that we can do to show that we're working on this and create kind of a levy maintenance protocol or levy maintenance account, so to speak, to show what we're spending to be able to maintain this, because as the senator put it, we brought in Senator Comerford, we brought in State Rep Gomez. Who else did we have at the meeting? We had then we have McGovern's office there
Yeah,
as well.
and the chair of the climate.
Chair of the climate committee, and we had McGovern's office there as well. And ultimately what it came down to is they'll support us. They'll try to help us get big dollars to make these needed repairs and or redo the levee. But we have to show that we can't say we've done nothing.
We gotta put some effort into it.
Put some effort
We
into
gotta give something, we
They-
can get
they
something.
basically
So what
said-
kind of maintenance are they
they-
asking, are we doing minimum wise?
This is what we're talking about. Mowing it is part of the maintenance. So if we're doing that, in order to find that,
Where everybody walks? or
it's
something?
it's going down towards the river as well.
We
The
got a
problem
writing
is,
machine to do that now.
Yeah, we do what we can reach, and obviously we contract. A contractor comes with a very large machine that can reach, down a significant way. Every year they come at, obviously they can. That we're keeping up with it. The mowing's a lot faster because they're mowing, much smaller brush, so it cuts right through it. But the problem really with this is where they can't get on the toe of the slope towards the water's edge. There's a lot of spots where they can't reach. We looked at hand cutting, whatever. There's a lot involved with getting close to the water and hand cutting and etc. It's very labor intensive. They did it last year for a couple of days. They went nowhere fast. The contractor actually called and said, I'm in the business to work and, make money, but I feel I'm doing you a disservice doing this. We are going so slow that we're not gonna meet any of your expectations. We just physically can't do it. By the time you cut a branch, you throw it up, you try to get it to a point where it can get chipped off or whatever. It's
dangerous.
It's dangerous. It's very labor intensive.
So we're talking about potentially, you gotta put boats in the water and do it from the river's edge and things like that. That's neither here nor there,
Yeah.
but the long story is that we have to put this is one of those lines that Scott made the point. We have to put some money back into this line, and we cut it completely. So just wanted to make a point that was one of the lines that he kind of railed at us and suggested that we, he would need that money back.
Yeah. And, just,
Sorry.
yeah, no problem. It just, and then to do it correctly, obviously, you're talking, I bet you $1 million to float a small barge on there and mow that lower section. By the time they go through all that, just throwing it out there. Eventually, it may come to having to do something with that. I'm not sure what the Army Corps is gonna say to Mike or, these engineers, but it's gonna cost a ton of money to cut the water's
Are there
edge.
trees on the river edge that there's, so close to the water that there's actually trees?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And the problem is
1
that,
inch, 3 inch, like. trees?
I'd say, the 1 to 3 inch, they're maple trees and they're just
Yeah.
seedlings from whatever and.
and if you
Just
don't
keep
clear them
coming.
off, one of the other issues is that one of the reasons that dikes like ours or levees like ours fail. one of the things that they attack first when they're fixing it is, animal burrows. And you can't see the animal burrows until you cut back the vegetation, so you gotta do the cut back first, and then you gotta find it all.
And the root erosion that you get that the water follows.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So, just, you know, like I said, I just wanted to make the point that we're working on that, but it's another one of those lines that, you know, if we had the money, we would be putting it back into that line immediately.
Yeah, and just continuing on, like, you know, police details, a lot of times, you know, depending what road we work on, we need police support. The rates are going up with the police, so, you know, it's just what price of doing business. You know, unfortunately, they don't come for us for nothing. We have to pay for that expense. The engineering architectural, one of the biggest expenses out of that line is all the maintenance for the engineering for the dump and all the testing. And that contract goes up every year also. I talked about the trees. You know, we can do what we can do. Vehicle fuel. That's another one that it's kind of a guessing game. No one can really predict what the market's gonna do with fuel. So we're just keeping our fingers crossed that there's no major jumps in fuel.
And Scott covers fuel for all departments now. All department fuel goes through DPW.
Right.
Police, fire, meaning all
Yes,
the.
sir. Yep, everybody. Everybody except for the private contracted ambulance service.
And you track who's using how much, of course. There's a
Yeah,
record.
yeah,
Okay.
Public works supplies, just another one of those, just us buying materials, just decreased and like I said, the one that even make the list is, you know, I asked for, you know, 200,000 for road maintenance to try to do above and beyond crack sealing. If we need to stripe the roads and things like that, and it's just, we're surviving off chapter 90, that's only gonna go so far, so.
Yeah.
And just there, a couple of things, Linda, for operational reasons, she just merged the street lights budget into the highway budget, and the cemetery operational money is put into the highway department budget now, just to make things a little easier.
Happens with these very, very small budgets, is you have to have enough money in there in case you need that money for those purposes. But there's usually money left over at the end of the year. But if we didn't have it in there, you'd have no source for the expense. So